All right, everybody, welcome back to another live stream. This is our first live stream of 2025. Happy New Year. I guess today's the 7th. This means we've been in 2025 for a whole week now.
It doesn't feel like it.
Nope.
I don't know if you guys follow the year and the year progress bar on X,
I love that thing.
but it's like, yeah, I was just the whole year last year I was just watching it march on down, and it got into like November and December, and then I remember it was like New Year's or the day before, and it's like the year is now 99% complete. I was like, oh crap. 2024 is almost over.
I printed off one of those sheets that has like a square for every week of your life.
Oh yeah.
Is
What is
that
it, like
Fill 'em
4,000?
all in.
motivating or
Like
terrifying?
that?
It's it can be motivating, or it can
Yeah,
be
yeah.
crippling, but mostly motivating for me.
I only have 1,586 weeks left.
Yeah, what are you gonna do this weekend? Make it count.
Gotta do something.
Yeah, honestly, it makes it easier when my kid is like, "Hey, Dad, come kick a soccer ball with me," and I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna drop everything. I'm gonna go kick a soccer ball with my kid."
That's easy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of like, "Oh, but I really got to write this doc."
Yeah. Happy New Year, everybody. We like a lot of you took some time off over the holidays, but we made a big push right before that to get some meaningful work out the door. And we're pretty happy with that. If you were paying attention, like in late or mid to late November, we shipped React Router v7. And React Router v7 is a pretty meaningful release for us. It really was, Ryan gave a talk about React Router v7 at ReactConf back in May last year, and he was basically just trying to, it's Seth came up to me basically after that talk. Seth, for those of you who don't know, is the guy who leads the React.
He's the manager of the
effort.
React team.
Yeah, yeah, at Facebook or Meta. Anyway, he came up to me after that talk, and he was like, after Ryan's talk, and he was like, I think that was really significant what you guys are doing. He's like, I think that was probably one of the most significant talks of the day, because React Router has been around for 10 years now at this point. It's a huge part of the React ecosystem, and we cut a major release last year, right? It's still alive. It's still being actively worked on, actively developed. So everybody who's been building on it for a very long time now has a lot of really cool stuff to look forward to and use. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. We've got kind of these two modes that you can use it in now. You can use it as you've always done, just as like a library. You just import a couple of components and go, and you're going to have to bring your own, your own bundler and your own server runtime and all the other stuff that, you've built over the years, your Webpack config and everything, or your Vite config, and just use React Router as a library. Just import a couple of components and off you go. So you can still totally do that, and we still totally support that 100%. You could also use React Router as like a framework. So what we did was we brought back a bunch of the stuff from Remix, which basically is our CLI and our Vite plugin that make it feel more like a full-blown framework. And so you can kickstart a new app, and we've got some really, really great starter templates. Jacob did a fantastic job on those starter templates. You can like get started in under a minute with like database and server rendering and code splitting and all like everything on a brand new app on Cloudflare Workers, with React Router v7 using the templates that we've got there. So, or he's got another one where you're using Postgres and Drizzle and all that great stuff included, and all the batteries included, and Tailwind.
It's even got Docker files in there, which I'm building an app for my wife's photography business right now, and I tried to do the $5 DigitalOcean thing that everyone says that you should do, and anyway, it was really cool. It pretty much just worked because of the Docker file all by itself, and then I ran into some stuff there with file uploads. And so I just moved it over to Fly real quick, and it just picked up the Docker file, and away you go.
Yeah.
Really, really good stuff in there. Some people might look at it and be like, "What is all this crap? Look at all these config files." But if you're actually trying to ship something and not just play around on the weekend, all that stuff is really, really valuable.
Yeah. So React Router, has these kind of two modes now. Either just use it as a library, as you've always done, or use it as a full-blown framework. And I just want to say, I don't think, did we? I'm sure there were some changes, but we didn't have any like major API changes for people who are using it in library mode.
Yeah. So I know we say framework and library mode. In my head, there's kind of three ways that you use it. There's the route components, right? Like you say routes, and then you add all those route components.
Oh, that, yeah.
And then there's create browser router, which then opens up all the data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there's routes TS, where our bundler actually does a whole bunch of stuff for you. If you're just using the components like routes and route inside, the only breaking change from V6 to V7 was our splat path handling, and when you do a relative ... slash on a segment that has a static segment /star, that changed how we match, because we actually had a bug the whole time with how we handled that, but people relied on the behavior so much that we quit calling it a bug and called it a breaking change. But that's it. So like when you look at Restream, or you look at Linear, or you look at literally every Twitter, X, pretty much everyone who's using React Router, the vast majority are just using those routes and route components everywhere. So that ... slash with a star path is the only breaking change for them. There were a handful of little things for people using Create Browser Router or coming over from Remix. But all of those things were already available in future flags. So you can still just do one at a time on your own schedule. So if you're updated on all your future flags as usual, then it's totally non-breaking. But yeah, just the splat path.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Maybe I'm still a little defensive about this, but we took some heat years ago for being this library that would like always change and break people's stuff. Now we don't do that. And anybody who says we do is a liar.
Yeah, total incomplete.
Or at best, it's misinformation.
Or even then, like we go years between these releases too. So like how many decades need to pass before you can ship a breaking change when you have a better idea?
Yeah. Anyway, React Router v7.
I wanted to add one thing that I think is cool about it. We keep talking about it in modes because that's the easiest way to document it and help people understand, like, hey, we didn't break how you use React Router. You don't have to use all this bundler stuff that we have. You don't have to server render. We've seen React change itself, not Remix, not React Router. We've seen React itself change a lot recently. And there's a lot of different ways that people use React. And so what I really love about the React Router 7 release is that all of our modes are pretty much able to run in the same app. So typically when you say mode, it's like you're either doing this or you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
But that's not actually the case with React Router v7. You can use routes TS, use our bundler, and use all that kind of stuff, which is a little bit difficult to get to that point because that's like the entry point of rendering your app. But you don't even need server rendering for this part either. Like it can just be a single page app. You add routes TS, get your entry points right. There's like 3 files that you need for our bundler to understand. And then from there, you can actually just render your old app exactly as it is, 100% with your routes component and all the little route components that match inside. And with your Apollo or TanStack query or whatever else you're using for data, literally, if you can get those like 3 entry points right and point our bundler at it, your old app will run exactly the way it used to. And then you can start plucking routes out of that app and switch over to client loaders, and you'll start getting automatic bundle splitting. You get a different way to handle data if you like it better than what you're doing. And so you can actually run these 2 things in parallel and incrementally migrate to one. And then if you want to turn on server rendering, you can say, all right, now I'm going to bring in the server abstractions from React Router that maybe your app didn't even have in the first place. And you're going to run into deployment stuff. That's the tricky part. But as far as your app code is concerned, you can still have those old routes inside of a routes component. You can have your new routes that all use client loaders and don't actually server render. And then you can start adding loaders to those routes and server render that UI and fetch the data on the server, and then start adding actions there too. So while we talk about it in modes a lot, that's not really the complete truth. You can run it in parallel and incrementally migrate to any style of React that you want. For me, it's both a strength and a weakness of React Router. The API feels sprawling now, and it feels huge, and it feels like this unruly project a little bit on the surface. But because React has kind of, the way that you use React has expanded, I think React Router is a really great way to just use React in every way that it currently works. We even have pre-rendering, so you can even do SSG now with it as well. So for me, React Router is like this. It's like this. It's like this lobby where like you can pick whichever door of React you want to go and use, and you can use multiple doors at the same time. And then once we get RSC in there, same thing, right? So now you can use React in all the ways that it currently supports. I don't love building gigantic multi-purpose frameworks that don't have a ton of opinions, but that's where we've ended up, is not a ton of opinions, but very flexible to be able to use React however you want to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So we had talked before we started the stream. Brooks, did you want to take us through some docs changes, or
Sure. Yeah, we can
things that have
can
gone
kinda
on over there?
kind of talk about that a little bit. So I don't know if I have anything to share, but yeah, so we launched V7 like right before Thanksgiving, American holiday, and the goal was really to get it out because we really wanted people to be able to play with it over the holidays, be able to give us feedback as to what was missing, what needed to be done. We had a bunch of stuff we already knew we wanted to work on, which Ryan's going to talk about the progress there in a second. And so, yeah, so one thing that we've already like released a minor, we've released support for, oh man, I just had it up. Oh, well, that's fine. Anyway, so with all that though, like one complaint we've had a little bit, or something that we've noticed, like some people struggling with, is the documentation. Definitely needs continual improvement. I think that it's much better than it was. The way like we organize docs has kind of shifted and grown a lot. And again, we have these two modes like Ryan keeps talking about. So we're trying to like balance all these different things. So basically, I just want to say, like, if you feel like the docs aren't that great, that is something we're trying to improve a lot this month. We added a tutorial. That was a big step. So if people are struggling to get started, we find that the tutorial, is the best place to get started. It talks through all the modes that Ryan just talked about. It talks through how you would adopt all these things like server-side rendering incrementally, how you do data loading, all that good stuff. And then the other kind of aspect is, because a lot of the concepts and tools and ideas from Remix made it into React Router, we have a lot of kind of backporting of old documentation we want to bring into React Router, but we don't just want to like dump all these 3-4 years of documentation kind of backlog without like actually pruning it. So we're still trying to improve that and make it clear, much better, fit into the paradigm that we have, make sure that we're documenting the library versus the framework mode well. So yeah, we're just doing a lot more in the documentation world. So I'm sorry if it's been a little bit tough to get started. Hopefully it hasn't been too complicated. And hopefully, if you're not already on the Discord, I would definitely say go on the Discord. There's lots of people who are willing to help and definitely have a wealth of knowledge, even more than I would say I have, about how all these things work. So if you're struggling with something, that's definitely a good place to go as well.
Yeah, we got a lot of super helpful people in the Discord.
And in all time zones. It's wild. I'll wake up and there's just like 50 to 100 messages of people asking questions and getting good information, or just having random conversations about like anime or something.
Good side conversations as well.
We do have
finally
the
finished
random
Attack
channel.
on Titan over the break. I hadn't watched the final episode. The show is so weird. But
What show?
it. Attack on Titan.
Oh, I haven't watched it. Is it an anime show?
Yeah, it's episode 1. You'll know if the show is for you or not.
One of those.
Oh my gosh. I finished it and I was like, I don't know about this. And so then I watched episode 2 and then I was hooked.
That's how the Amazon Rings of Power was.
I haven't watched that yet.
Well, I watched episode 1 and I was like, no. I don't know, maybe I should have pushed through to episode 2. It's just so slow. Anyway.
Yeah. I've been having a hard time with anything streamed, because we moved into this house and we got like a nice room with nice audio and visual and stuff in there. And I was kind of disappointed with it all. And then my AV guy was like, are you streaming or is it Blu-ray? And I was like, I'm streaming. He's like, oh, go get the movie on Blu-ray, put it in a good Blu-ray player, and then call me. And so I did, and I was like, holy crap, it is so different. So there's a lot of shows where I'm like, I'll wait till I can buy it on Blu-ray to watch that one.
I've never invested in Blu-ray.
Yeah, me neither. I was like, I just skipped that whole.
It feels like old technology at this point.
Yeah,
I guess it's not.
Oh, it's like 10 times more bytes than what you get over. So it's 4K when they stream, right? But you're getting a ton of compression and like the audio. Like you put in a Blu-ray. It was crazy. So I put the same movie on, the same intro. What show was it? It was a military one where there's like a jet flying across, kind of in the distance through the clouds. I forgot what it was. The intro. But anyway, I put it up on Netflix, and then I put it up same time on my Blu-ray player, and I'd like swap between them, and it was an insane difference. Audio's better.
I believe it. Yeah, we've become accustomed. It's kind of like how all music used to be MP3s.
Yeah,
when we were kids, right? It was like we had just gotten used to this like lower bit rate, and we called that music, you know?
Yeah, the cymbals all crappy in the background.
Yeah.
See what they sound like. Anyway, I'm gonna pull up the roadmap if that's all right with you guys.
Do it,
please do.
I'm gonna pull up a Chrome window. This one? Yes, this one. All right. You guys see that? Yep. Okay, it's in the stream.
Yep.
So this is our roadmap now. I cleaned out some stuff. We've been talking about middleware for a million years. It's finally about to ship, thanks to single fetch being the default in React Router. We haven't really talked about this a whole lot, and I don't know exactly what it looks like yet. Matt's just been working on it. But there is client loader and action middleware too. So if you're using create browser router or client loader and client action, you can still have middleware there too. So it'll be a good spot if you're doing a single page app and your auth is like a client side thing, right? There's a whole bunch of, most React apps probably are doing client side auth with some other service provider or your old Rails or PHP app or something, but all your auth is just happening there in the browser. And so you actually want to protect routes or get auth data before your loaders, and that gets tricky in client loaders because you're not in the render lifecycle, so you don't have access to React state and things like that, which is where usually that stuff kind of gets stored. So yeah, kind of cool. We'll have client middleware as well, so that you can do very server feeling auth workflows and other workflows right there in a single page app. But of course, the main motivation of this was for middleware on the server. And we're going to be able to build some really great middleware now that we have single fetch, and your data loading shares a single request context. We'll be able to build abstractions that you can use in both React Router, and if you've been following Michael's work in Remix the Web, there's some stuff over there, and we'll be able to build abstractions that work in both places. And I think it'll be pretty great. We got, so that's near completion. We have a couple like bike shedding API things to do here to finish it off. Route module chunks. This one is splitting out client loaders and actions. I think we've talked about this one before, but this little visualization shows pretty quick. When you click on a link in React Router with client loaders, we have to go get the whole module first, and then we can call the client loader, and then we can render. So as usual, we're trying to get rid of waterfalls. This work splits out client loaders and actions. So if you click on a link and we haven't loaded that code yet, we can go get your component, and we can also go get the loader at the same time. So we're splitting this client loader out of the route module so that we can fetch it in parallel with the rest of your code. And then the loader is probably a lot smaller than your component because your component has so many UI bits and stuff in there. So we can get this, and then we can call the loader. And so there's a good chance we may have your data ready before your component's even there. But if not, we're gonna, like you can see, these lines are all the same size. And so we can, well, no, they're not. That's a little bit, but, it should speed things up considerably for route modules, specifically those that have really big components compared to their loader.
Which I think is pretty common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, your loader is a couple of lines, fetch some data, hit an API, whatever.
Yep.
Your component is like, here's a bunch of nested, UI and divs and spans and class names and
all these libraries to render whatever you're trying to render.
Yeah. Especially if you're using accessible components, those ones are a lot bigger.
Yep.
And you got all your CSS junk in there and all your tailwind. Yeah.
Yep.
So
yep.
This would be a big deal. This is highly motivated by the work that the admin team at Shopify, the way that they use React Router, they're using Create Browser Router, and they have split out this stuff manually, and then they put it back together. So we're hoping that this work is good enough that then they can just use our native feature here. But if not, we will ask them why, and we will continue to make it even better until they do want to use it directly from our APIs. And then RSC from loaders and actions. We got a nice update here. We have a pull request to React itself that Jacob on our team is working on, and getting some help from Sebastian and Ricky on the React team. So we got the React trifecta. We've got Meta Vercel, and Shopify all working on this PR. So this PR is React Server DOM Vite, so it isn't React Router specific. It's just some, I guess Vite bindings isn't the word. I don't know what to call it. It's stuff for Vite to work with RSC. And these React Server DOM Vite, React Server DOM Webpack, React Server DOM ESM, all of these things live in the React repo, so that as React works on things with their server abstractions, they can more easily know if they're breaking all the bundler integrations. So they've got automated tests on these things, so that if they change something, an internal thing of React Server that seems like maybe it isn't a breaking change, they can know, oh, actually we still did break React Server DOM Webpack, or we broke React Server DOM Vite with this change. And so kind of cool of the React team to take on a lot of this responsibility. They want this code in their repo so that they can run the tests, they can try to fix things, but also to bring in the community into the repo as well. If there is an issue that they can't quickly figure out, then they can bring in people who know Vite and React well, like Jacob. And as a community, we can make sure that React stays a really stable dependency in your app, even with all these touch points with bundlers and servers and things like that. So as soon as we get this thing merged, we'll probably use this to then finish off our RSC work, which should be nice. Kind of interesting. The Next.js and the team at Vercel, they have the React Server DOM Webpack integration in the React repo, but then they have a fork of it for what they actually use in Next.
Oh, wow.
With Jacob, there's a chance it might be like that for us too, where we don't directly use the stuff that's coming from the React packages that we merged in here. We may have a fork of it as well. But still good that these things are right in React so they can know ahead of time if internal changes might break these bundler integrations. So that's all the things that are in progress. I think that I don't know if this is in progress. It might be. Let's pretend like this is in progress.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, Brooks, I'm not signed in. That's why I couldn't change
Ah, no wonder. Yeah.
stuff.
Well, good on GitHub for not letting you change the name.
Yeah, good job. And then server actions too. I've still got kind of mixed feelings on server actions. We talked about this as a team yesterday, but it's part of React. It's documented in React. Maybe I'll come around to it. Jacob says he's loving them. So anyway, we'll be adding support for use server and server actions as well. So it's gonna be a little tricky for us to write documentation in React Router because there's so much overlap between all of our data abstractions and our action abstractions and our form and our transitions. Like we've done a lot of that, and our server abstractions too. We've done a lot of work there, and now React has a lot of those, can handle those use cases too. And so it's going to be a little bit tricky to know when should I use a fetcher and when should I use a server action and when should I do this, and there aren't really clear answers, at least in my head right now, of when you should do one or the other. I've been developing this app I was telling you about, trying to use React's things first before I run into something where I want to then drop down to a React Router API instead. But yeah, I'm still excited about it, even though there's too many ways to do the same thing, because we need people who are interested in using React Server Actions, because there's really cool composition and encapsulation that you can do with RSC and Server Actions and use client, stuff that you can't do in Remix and React Router v7 today. And so if you're interested in that stuff, all those APIs are going to be there for you to do it that way. And if you're not, you don't have to. And if you're on React 18 and something's keeping you from going to React 19, React Router still has a bunch of stuff to do things that React can do. And then once you get upgraded, you could start migrating over to those React APIs. So it really is it's a bridge from React 18 to 19. And that's another reason why there's going to be multiple ways to do what feels like the exact same thing. Because we had our APIs, now React has its APIs, and we support both of them so that we're that bridge between the two versions of 18 and 19, which I don't think you can really get anywhere else in such a fluid way. Yeah, so server actions is planned. Type-safe href builder. We have a bunch of great new type safety in React Router v7 that we didn't have in v6, and we didn't have in Remix v2 either. And so that includes like automatic loader data and action data inference, params. We actually now, in your component, if you bring in the params there, or in your loader when you bring in the params, it has type hints for exactly what your dynamic params are, instead of having to like, do a quick little runtime check if it actually exists or not. This is going to take that next step. Now that we have your routes.ts config file, we can use that to make a function that will know all of your routes and the params so that you can build type-safe links. And so if you're linking to a route that doesn't actually exist in your app, you'll get the TypeScript red squigglies under it. And if you go change a path in your route config, then you'll start getting some type errors in other places, and know that you need to go fix those. Because honestly, that's one of the hardest things with app development is early on, you kind of change your URLs quite a bit. And if you've got a lot of UI already built and you go mess with the URL a little bit, it's really difficult to go find all of those links that are now wrong. So this will help tremendously with that. And it's been a highly requested feature. So that's what's planned. I added some milestones now over here. So you can look at any one of these things on our roadmap, come over here to milestone and see which version we hope to ship that in. I was looking at the Latin root of the word hope. Brooks, do you know what it is? Some other words that it's a synonym with?
I've not done any Latin in like 15 years, so.
Hebrew. But
is it like speranza, or does it have a S-P-E-R?
Another translation for the word would be expect. So if you hope for something, you could also say you expect something. So
it's quite the opposite of how we use it now.
Yeah, how most people use hope. If you're, yeah. So anyway, we hope, we expect this to be in 7.2. And so, yeah, you can always look at anything on here and see when we intend to do that. And then you can also come over to our milestones, and we've got due dates on these things. So Michael's been talking about this for a while, where it would be really nice to just like have an expectation that like React Router is going to have a release on March 6th with any major changes to it, whether they're breaking or just minor. And so we'll have a handful of things on our roadmap, and we'll say, okay, we're working toward getting these things done for 7.2. And then in 7.2, you can expect that to be there. Lot of internal teams ask us all the time, when's this coming? When's this coming? When do you think? And I think what we've learned, and our CEO at Shopify says this all the time too, is unless you actually pick a date that you want to ship something, it doesn't tend to ship. You just noodle on it forever.
Yeah, you just keep sort of, oh, I'm going to paint that a different color.
Yep.
Yeah.
Force
you to make the final decisions instead of like, yeah. Anyway, so We expect to just have these regular releases every quarter, 3 months. So March 6th, then June 6th, then 7.4 or maybe 8, whatever it's going to be. July, August, September would be September. And if we beat that goal, then we can adjust the other ones back, because now we'll be working on the next thing. So anyway, I'll be keeping this stuff up to date as soon as I log back in.
Your biggest blocker.
Yeah. Before the call, Brooks was like, "Oh, you got your numbers off by 1." I had 7.1 and 7.2, and he's like, we already shipped 7.1. I was snowboarding, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "This UI is garbage. I literally can't edit this." And I didn't even bother to see if I was signed in. So I think we can get all of this in to 7.1, maybe not server actions. So we might move that one. I need to talk to Jacob about what's involved there. We might be able to get it into, because it's probably part of this work anyway. Yeah. So anyway, hoping that everything on here, basically, if it's in planned, I kind of think that now means like it's on a milestone.
It's cool. I like that.
These
Yeah,
things
the regular milestones are great because people can it just helps people plan.
Yeah, because they got all their work that they're doing too, and
Yeah.
sometimes our work is kind of a blocker for them.
Yeah, and then maybe they can say, "Oh, okay, in March I'll take a look at this."
Yeah.
In the meantime, I'm heads down on something else.
Or we're super interested in RSC stuff, so let's start moving stuff to loaders right now. Yeah. And then I'm hoping our team has a handful of conversations we're going to be having about the future of React Router and Remix. So I'm hoping we'll soon be able to start adding some of our plans for Remix. The web. If you've been, oops, I just opened that in the wrong thing. We got a handful of packages already going on here that Michael's been working on. And we actually, even in our docs, we're already showing how to use the multi-part parser from Remix the Web in React Router actions to upload files. And this lazy file is awesome too. I've been using this over the break as I built my photo app for my wife. It's been pretty awesome. Anyway, lots of very low level stuff. Honestly, Michael, kind of for me, your work here feels like watching the Connect and Express teams 13 years ago establish some foundational pieces for the Node ecosystem. This is, in my mind anyway, this is the first real big push I've seen for hey, let's take these web APIs, build a nice foundation for the server.
It's funny when you go back and you and there's a lot of FUD that goes around about this, by the way. I know, for example, some of our friends at SST, what's his name, Dax.
Yeah.
Still need to meet that guy in person. But he's always like, "Oh, you shouldn't use web APIs on the server." Jared, the bun master, he's always like, "Oh, web streams are bad for servers." Even Guillermo said it.
Yeah,
Guillermo was like,
"We tried it. It didn't work.
You can't fight physics, man."
Oh yeah, watch me.
That one cracks me up. But anyway, to all of those people, I would just say thank you for your input. Run your own benchmarks, and I'm not saying that they're not. They are, absolutely. It's just, it's so there's so many factors. There's so many variables, and it really just depends. What are you building? Where are you deploying? what versions of things are you running? But anyway, sorry, I'm off on a tangent here. I'm off on a total tangent. What I was trying to say was there was a lot of stuff to do if you have this philosophy. So what is the philosophy? The philosophy, I tried to describe it on the README, is we're going to bring web APIs and we're going to run them on the server. What does that mean? Well, in Remix, and a lot of people are doing this now. We were using request and response on the server and headers, right? And fetch. Those are web APIs. We're now using them to build servers. We use those as our primitives for building servers. And that's kind of cool. What other APIs are there from the web that we can use to build servers? Well, if you're doing any work with binary data, or maybe you're streaming video files or you're uploading images, right? You need you need to use streaming and binary formats that that can accommodate that kind of data, right? You're not using Node.js buffers anymore. The web has typed arrays, so you're going to use the web's typed arrays, and you're not using Node.js streams anymore. The web actually has streaming formats. So the web has readable stream and writable stream and transform streams and decompression streams and compression streams. And so what a lot of the work is doing in this repo is it's basically taking a look at, like, how are people doing this in Node? Because people have been building servers in Node for a long time now. People have not been building servers in Node with web primitives for very long, right? I think the first time I saw it was when Cloudflare Workers was doing it, and then Remix did it, and now a lot of people are doing it. Dino, their HTTP API, they use the fetch primitives, and Dino is actually very cool. They do a lot of work with the web APIs on the server. Bun does it as well. Their main bun.serve API, they just give you a request and you get it back a response. They have excellent support for things like the typed arrays, the streaming formats that I'm talking about.
Fastly uses it now too for their server functions.
Totally, yeah. So we're bringing these web APIs back to the server, and at every step of the way, I'm building and running benchmarks basically against popular libraries on Node, right? So for the multi-part parser, for example, the one multi-part parser that a lot of people use on Node, even the React team was using it in the RSC work. One very popular multi-part parser is Busboy, and you can just run the benchmark, and then you can run another benchmark of the multi-part parser that I built that's basically using like I said, typed arrays, readable streams, and everything. And we can actually be, most of the time we can be as fast or in some cases faster than these very popular Node libraries. And even especially when you take a look at the other runtimes, like when you take a look at Bun and Dino, who I feel like are they're newer than Node, and they've kind of had the benefit of, like, starting later, and those APIs, they must be hyper optimized on those platforms, especially both Bun and Dino are incredibly fast when you're using web APIs. So anyway, this is basically just I guess I'm feeling a little bit defensive. This is like a little defense, but I'm just trying to show people, like, we're doing the work, right? We're doing the work to stand up the work that we do to sort of fill in this back end ecosystem on all of these various JavaScript runtimes. We're standing it up against comparable Node libraries, which have been the industry standard now for more than a decade. And we're finding that in the small cases, in these micro cases, in these little benchmarks, we can be as fast or faster than stuff that people have been deploying in production for over a decade now, right? So I think that is significant, right? And if we can do that, if we can lay that kind of a foundation, then the things that we build on top of it are not going to suffer, from it's slow. I saw somebody say the other day, it was Jared actually, it was Jared Sumner who was he was saying like Next.js does like 300 requests per second or something on the server. And he was saying how, he basically ran a profiler and he was taking a look like why are they only doing 300 requests a second on the server? And he was looking at apparently and I'm not super familiar with the internals of Next.js, but apparently the response when it's first generated, it starts as one form of a stream and then goes to a, maybe it starts as like a web stream and then goes to a node stream and then back to a web stream or something like that. There's basically a couple of ways. And I don't want to spread FUD about Next, but the gist of it was that they're making some trade-offs by, piping one streaming format into another streaming format. And every time you do that, like there's buffering and there's slowness that you introduce into the system, right? So what I'm trying to do with this repo is I'm basically just trying to strip everything down and just say, look, let's start at the lowest possible levels. Let's just start with web streams. Let's start with typed arrays, instead of node buffers. Let's start with web APIs on the server, and then let's build everything up on top of that. Do benchmarks as we go. We should end up in, I think, what is a good place with a platform that feels really solid and stable. I'm actually deploying a lot of this stuff. So I spent the Christmas break rebuilding Unpackage, and I'm actually going to be deploying a lot of that stuff this month. But it's going to be a useful, I think, battleground because it's just handles so many requests. It does billions of requests every day. I think it'd be a good just a proving ground for this stuff. See like, can we actually deploy web APIs at scale? How does it behave? What does it look like before we end up like shipping a lot of this stuff in the next version of Remix. But as you were saying, we already have examples where like you can pull in this stuff, you can pull in the multi-part parser, you can pull in the form data parser, you can pull in the node fetch server, which is another library that's over here, part of Remix the Web. A lot of people have been getting some mileage out of node fetch server. You can use the file stuff. Oh, that's another API. That's another web API that that I don't think anybody's using. Like I've seen other people do stuff with readable streams, writable streams, typed arrays, request response. Obviously, everybody's doing that. I haven't seen anybody using the file API on the server. But the file API on the server is actually a really freaking cool API. When you think about like your node file system code, when you think about just like everybody's got some. Everybody's got some like fs create read stream, fs.stat sync, fs.this and that. Everybody's got some node file system code. The web actually gives you this file. It's so two APIs, file and blob. The web gives you these two APIs. And there's just standard JavaScript APIs. And typically the way you use them is if you're doing file uploads on the web, in the client, in the browser, you can say, oh, you could, for example, like read out a file that somebody is uploading. If you wanted to show like, let's say you wanted to like take an image that somebody is uploading and, you want to access the raw binary data. Maybe you want to like put it in a canvas and show a preview, or you want to like, tee the stream and upload it to two different places. I don't know what you're doing, but So anyway, typically these APIs are in the browser. You can access sort of raw binary data right there in the browser. They're also great for server side work though, right? Like if you just think about it, like I want a logical concept and a constructor for a file.
Yeah.
What does that give me? Well, files have some really cool properties. They automatically have, you can automatically read its size. You can automatically know its type, right? So typically you're pulling in a separate like MIME type library to say like, oh, let me figure out the MIME types from the file system extensions or whatever. File already has that built in, right? You can really easily stream the thing or buffer the entire thing or slice it and just give you a section of it, right? So let's say you're handling HTTP range requests and you only need bytes 100 to 200. File actually gives you this really cool little slice method. So you can just say, hey, just give me those bytes, right? I don't need the whole thing. Just give me those bytes. Oh, and by the way, now stream it down to the client. So it's it's a nice API that, again, I think makes a lot of sense in a server context where typically you would have a bunch of sort of custom bespoke Node.js code.
So this is a little video of the app I'm using, and I'm using it's React Router, but I'm using the here we go. I'm using the Node Fetch server. I'm using multi-part parse. I'm using lazy file. I'm using headers. I'm using form data parser.
Yeah, it's useful stuff, right?
I'm using all of those. And here's the UI that I built so far, so you can see. So right here, when you open up this dialog on a computer and select some files, that's those file constructors Michael's talking about. And so I have stuff in the browser to read those files, and I, like he was saying, I put them into a canvas and then I resize them and then I upload them, so I don't have to do all the resize work on my computer. On my server.
No, make the browser work, right?
Yeah, their browser does the work. And then I got these upload progress handlers and all these previews and stuff. And what's really cool is on the server, because the file API is there too, I can use all the same code to deal with the file on the server too. Like if I want to read information about it, or like Michael was saying, tee the stream or send it off to Cloudflare or AWS and store it somewhere else, or my own local file system or something, right? Yeah, it's really cool. Really nice to have, and that's the direction that JavaScript is definitely going, especially with React Server components, and everybody else. Astro, they use the fetch APIs and request and response. Solid Start does it. So this ability to use the same abstraction, which is the web API, in both places is just, it's awesome. You have one app, whether it's server or client, you can use a lot of the same functions.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it feels more JavaScripty, than having. I mean, it's like we've always done. Like we can just link to MDN for our docs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you want to know about the file API? Here you go. You want to know about the readable stream API? Here you go. You want to know about typed arrays? Here you go. We don't even have to write those docs.
The context switching between JavaScript and then Ruby, JavaScript and then PHP, JavaScript and then whatever. Like, I don't know. I found that disruptive to my workflows.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Node.js docs, there's so much stuff that Node had to invent that JavaScript was missing.
Mm-hmm.
So much stuff that Node had to ship, that like these low-level primitives that, they really just wanted to like build HTTP servers, but they actually had to come up with like a whole bunch of other API to support that goal. And the web has sort of come in and backfilled a lot of that stuff. So anyway, that's what Remix the Web is about at this point, is like sort of laying that foundation, making sure that it's solid. I think hopefully, like I said, battle testing a lot of it. You're building with it. I'm building a lot of stuff with it. You know, hopefully, you know, by the time, you know, Remix, you know, we actually release the next version of Remix, a lot of this stuff will have been in use by many people for a while. And so it's not going to be like we have to, you know, go back and, oh shoot, the multi-part parser is busted, you know.
And
A lot of that stuff will have worked out the kinks at that point. And then you know, the layers that we build on top of this will be able to benefit from that stability.
Michael, I want to show you a tweet.
What did Dak say? Web standards for auth are so good. They are hard to implement, but now that I've done the work, it keeps on giving. Most recent one was doing SSH login for terminal. Very random, but it fit into a documented flow. Also realized I can do mobile app auth without opening a browser.
Right here. This is, I think this is the Remix philosophy.
Yeah.
Folks have said, oh, the web APIs don't work in a server context. They haven't done the work. But once you've done the work, it just keeps on giving. It's gonna be awesome.
Brooks, are you typing?
I am. Sorry, is it super loud?
So
I'll mute next time.
ASMR stream now.
That's all right. So yeah, anyway, there's a bunch of good stuff in there. And like you said initially, Ryan, you started off like at the very beginning, you were like, hey, I'm using this stuff. You can use this stuff today in React Router. You know,
You can use it in Astro. You can use it in SvelteKit. Yep. You can use it in Solid Start.
You can use it in Next.
Yeah.
You can use it wherever you want. So yeah, we're hopefully.
You can use it in a service worker.
Yep. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I actually just released. I had a pretty big headers release in December, and then another node fetch server release in December. We have like 1 minute. If you're doing content negotiation is something that I've always thought we don't talk about enough on the web. Like most people who are building web servers, it's like, I speak English and I hope you do too. And I serve HTML and I hope you like HTML because that's all I've got. I've got HTML in English. And that's what my web server serves. And, you know, maybe your client wants JSON. You know, maybe your client wants your content in French, you know? So how powerful are the tools that you have for doing content negotiation? So anyway, the headers library, you have all these, or what if they want, you know, what if they want a different type of encoding? What if they want, you know, what if they don't accept, you know, you can serve up your content as gzip or Brotli, and you'd really like to serve it as Brotli, but oh, do they accept Brotli? You know, like, or not. So anyway, headers library. If you look back in the release notes in December, we shipped some stuff that's really nice for doing content negotiation. So all of that stuff. So what languages do your clients accept? What encodings? What content formats? And then you can even like really easily get the preferred ones and stuff like that. So expect some really great tools for doing content negotiation in Remix. I'm thinking like in the vein of Rails had some really good helpers for that. It was like, what do they call it? It was respond with or something like that. It was like
respond to.
Yeah, I forget exactly what it was
called.
And
then it's just this like hash map of like.
Yeah, if they want JSON, give them this. If they want HTML, give them this. If they want, you know, a PDF, give them this. So yeah, it was, I just think it's part of the web and it's good to support that stuff. You can, and I think lots of the times the reason that we don't do good content negotiation is because it's kind of hard to do. And that's what the headers library is trying to make easy. So anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. But anyway, check that out if you're interested. There's some good stuff there.
Cool, man.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, respond to. Yeah, that was it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for another live stream. And yeah, got some good stuff in the works. We'll see you around.